it going, everyone? Welcome back to another video. So just picking up where I left off in the last video. Refinished these bad boys, reinstalled the bushings, and they're ready to go, and man, do they look nice. This color from Prismatic is just like next level, I swear. It's so good. It always turns out just immaculate. So I did pull the knuckle back off, and that's just because I want to mount up this cover real quick. It's kind of an eyesore, I know, but I do think that it's smart to run it on the car. The last thing I want is a piece of road debris getting kicked up and puncturing that filler neck. That would suck. Especially when it's something that can be so easily prevented. I touched it up with a little SEM trim black paint. It's not perfect, but it looks all right. Better than it did. All right. It ain't perfect, but it'll do. And it looks much better than it did. Let's get this trailing arm bolted up. Go right up to the chassis, right here. All right. Looking good. Now, before I get too ahead of myself, I need to mount these up to these little Spec C brackets. I believe that's what these originally came on. It was the STI Spec C type RAR, I think. That's kind of a mouthful. But yeah, pretty sure that is what these little suspension components came from originally. I have modified these a little bit so that I can use these adjustable end links because the studs on them are quite long, so I had to actually drill mine out just a little bit. So what's nice about these white line end links is they have a little Allen, little hex head inside here, and so you can hold these like this. And hopefully my wrench fits in there. Oh, sweet. Alright, hopefully that does not loosen up on itself. I have had these loosen up before. I think just from like vibration. I don't really know which hole to go with on here. I've never had an adjustable sway bar, so I guess I'll just go with the middle one. I'm probably gonna have to adjust this piece. So we'll just kind of let it chill. Hand tight like that. Now let's throw in these lateral arms. You know, these aren't symmetrical. This one with this piece, I believe this is for like the little DC-CD clip and like wiring. And I know these ones go at the back. If you look at these though, what's interesting is there's kind of like this beveled edge on these sides, and then this side doesn't have that. I want to say the beveled edge goes in, but I could be wrong. Let me look it up real quick and just to be sure. I don't know that it matters, but I would like to do it the way that it's intended to. All right guys, so as far as I can tell, the beveled sides go in the subframe. It's not in the center of the lateral arm. It's positioned more off to the side, and you want the side that has less of the arm facing out. Throw that in there. These bolts for the outer arms, they have these two washers. One is this funny shaped washer with these like hash marks on it. And I'm pretty certain, if you look at the bolt, it's got this flat spot on there, right here. So this thing can't go any further than that. So when you stick this through, this one goes on first, that goes on, and then the nut. And then this bolt for the inner lateral arms has this piece, and that always goes on the inside. And it goes on like this, so the little like domed part is facing in. And that's so you can put those like black, they have these like little black covers that you twist into place. And I think so that if there were any flexing going on back here, the nut wouldn't hit and rub against the fuel tank. At least that's what I think they're for. Try. Oh yeah, this is gonna be a real inch and a half, I think. Oh, maybe not. So that is definitely new, guys. Do yourself a favor. Don't forget to just mount the trailing arm to the knuckle on the bench before mounting it up. I'm not saying it's easy, but it was way easier. Now, I'm gonna put some gloves on because we got this big ass bolt here and it goes through this thing, and I'm putting some anti-seize on it. I think that's the beta with these, because I remember when I was taking this thing apart, this one was super seized up. Oh no, I did this last time. So every time I do this, at least once, you have to make sure this guy is up and out of the way. Otherwise, it makes it very difficult to get the thing in place. Throw this through. There you going. There you going. You know what? I think I'm wrong. That's pretty weird, guys. So I just figured something out, which is this big bolt won't fit through. So remember how I said the beveled edge goes into the subframe? Well, apparently not on the front one, because this bolt doesn't fit through the flat side. But on this one, the rear one, it does. So yeah, we just gotta flip this bad boy around. I'm just gonna slide this through. Yeah, this definitely should not be. This angle is just like terrible. All right, guys, so it is the next morning. I was unable to figure out what was going on with the end link. As you can see, there's still so much angle to it, and it should be just straight up and down. So that would mean that these holes need to be pushed further forward. And so I did a deep dive yesterday evening and continued it this morning, researching stuff on this Spec C suspension components. And that's what these lateral arms and the little bracket, they're from the GD era Spec C STI. I think one of them might even be like the Spec C type RAR. And they developed these suspension components for that specific model, and it was only in Japan, I believe, that they, as far as I can tell, that they produced this Spec C with this particular suspension setup. And so it is kind of like a rare setup, and it was a very track focused car. It was like a track ready car, like right out of the box. So it's pretty cool to be able to have access to these and be able to use them. I mean, they're not like that hard to find. They're just expensive now, just because they didn't make a ton of these components. You can still buy like the whole kit with these 4 pillow ball lateral arms with the brackets and the end links. And the issue that I'm having now is, as far as I can tell, the whole suspension setup came with this pink JDM rear sway bar as well. That was actually a 21 millimeter sway bar. So it was like a beefier sway bar than they had done in the past for that generation of STI. And I can't tell for sure, but it looks like it might be longer in the ends for it to stick forward enough to line up with the little bracket that holds the end link. And what I mean by that is this section of the sway bar, this section that sticks forward where the holes are to insert the top of the end link, it looks like that pink sway bar, this sticks further out so that it's just in line with this bracket, so the end link can stick straight up and down, because that's what you want with the rear suspension end links. You want them to be in this neutral position in order to function the way that they're designed. So now I am wondering about whether or not I can just get like a regular STI sway bar, which is the 20mm sway bar that came on the rear for the USDM 04 to 07 STI. But unfortunately, I still cannot find a clear answer as to whether or not the standard USDM STI sway bar is the same length in that section as that pink Spec C sway bar. Because if it is, I don't mind just going for the STI 20mm rear sway bar, because I just don't think that the 1mm difference will make a huge difference for me in what I'm trying to do with this car. And it's way cheaper, and the USDM STI sway bars can be sourced a lot more easily. Those pink sway bars, I've looked around for them. You can find them on eBay, but they're like $280 for just a sway bar. And I just think that's a bit ridiculous. And the only reason that I think it's priced so high is because they are kind of hard to find. They're a little bit rare now. I do want to be able to run this setup because I do think that it fixes a lot of the inherent understeer issues that are caused by the design flaws of the rear suspension geometry. Some of that is also due to the fact that the front of the car has a lot of weight extending over the front axles, which is never really good for steering and handling, and especially understeer. So these cars were plagued by not only having more weight up front like that, but also the design flaws in the rear suspension geometry, and which apparently STI had developed those Spec C rear suspension components in order to address some of those design flaws in the rear suspension geometry. So I know that's a lot. That was just kind of what I came up with, so I thought I would share after hours and hours of just diving into the different forums and reading different articles and reading about other people's setups and what they found and stuff like that. So, and running all the Spec C components like this, the lateral arms with those brackets and the extended end links, fixes a lot of that rear end suspension geometry so well that apparently you just don't need to run as stiff as sway bars. So I'm gonna be pulling this white line sway bar off, not only just because it doesn't fit correctly, but because like we just don't need something that thick if we're running these components. In addition to that, I'm also gonna be pulling the front sway bar because one thing that I've been reading a lot about that seems to be the consensus across the board is that if you really wanna improve the understeer on these cars, one thing that you should consider doing is running a slightly stiffer sway bar in the rear as the front. So for instance, like if we were running a 21mm in the rear, we could run like a 20 or a 19 in the front, which is a bit counterintuitive. I had always thought that it was the other way around, but apparently not so much with these cars. So with that said, I'm gonna pull some of these off. What I'm gonna do next, just to get a little bit more insight, is I'm going to just mount up this WRX rear sway bar. I'm not gonna leave this on the car, obviously. This is only a 17mm sway bar, so not very stiff at all. What I wanna do is I wanna see if even this one, if the lengths are different, and if it looks like it will allow the right position for that end link to stick straight up and down. And if it does, I'm kind of inclined to just order like an OEM STI sway bar and just go with the 20mm one in the rear, because I imagine it would be the same length as this. All right guys, so there it is. I know it looks a little funny because this is obviously way smaller, but yeah, I mean, look at how that lines up. Basically perfectly straight up and down. And that is what we want on this thing. So it's actually good news. It means that all I really need to do is just order up a USDM OEM 20mm rear sway bar. Should be able to even run these end links. These are at the max height that you should use them, which I don't really know how I feel about that, but we can try it. They are much stronger when you can just screw this thing all the way down in and like bottom it out, obviously, because then they're much stiffer. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to get the front sway bar, the STI stock sway bar, that's a 20 millimeter, hooked up to the front here. So we're gonna pull this front white line sway bar. And before I do that, I'm going to lay down some paint on the STI OEM front sway bar. I'm just gonna use some of this SEM trim black like I've used in the past, and we're just gonna get this thing recoated. Just the factory finish on it was looking a little rough. There's a lot of chipping and stuff, so I've already scuffed it up, and we're just gonna do a quick coat of paint. All right, so sway bar is all painted up, and you know, got a little schmoo on it there. That's all right. Our bushing will cover that probably. Wow, my hand is on fire right now. This was sitting in the sun for so long. Looks pretty good. The Endlinks, I think I'm not going to fully tighten them yet. I believe that you want some weight on the wheels. Like, so you want to like set it on the ground before you fully tighten these up. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I seem to remember reading that somewhere. That's all installed now, which is great. All right, guys, so it is a couple days in the future here. Had some general life stuff to take care of, but now I'm back at it. I decided to remove these sway bar mounts from the rear of the car. I don't want to use them. I just don't really like the fitment of them, if I'm being honest. So I went ahead and I ordered up the OEM ones, the STI ones. I have them right here. And these are the mounts. Came with all the hardware too. I did get these pieces from fastwrx.com. It's a pretty reputable site. Whoever runs that site does a pretty good job at putting together these little kits. So generally when you purchase these, every single piece has its own part number, including the bolts. So it's cool that he just kind of puts together a whole kit and it comes with everything. Let's go throw these up on the car, just because I don't want to lose anything, and that way it's there. And let's talk about what I've come up with as far as the sway bar solution. I can already tell you just by looking at these, the STI brackets have some reinforced sections on them. You can see kind of right here, these extra welds, this extra welded metal. The WRX ones don't have that, so these are definitely stronger, and they are directional. It has an L on it for left, and then it shows you which direction. It's so F for front, the arrow facing that way, so it goes like this. All right, so you guys are probably going to laugh, but I did decide to just order up the Spec C sway bar, the 21 millimeter like pink sway bar that's meant for those brackets. And I also ordered the Spec C Endlinks so that I just don't have to worry about this anymore. I was able to find one for a little cheaper. It was not $280, it was actually $250, and I thought that was fairly reasonable. It was more than I really wanted to spend, but I also would like the peace of mind of knowing that part that I'm going to get is going to work and it's gonna fit correctly. And I have no idea when it's gonna get here because it's coming from Japan. It looked like maybe as late as like June 10th or something. I had ordered up a Cusco sway bar that came yesterday because I wanted to see if an STI specific, or a different brand of STI specific sway bar would fit any differently than that white line one. And sure enough, it didn't. Actually, it did fit slightly better, but the Endlink was like still not fitting correctly. And the only way I could get it to fit like even somewhat in a neutral position was if I put the Endlink on the inside of the sway bar and left it as like a C shape, if that makes sense. And then I wasn't sure if that was like appropriate and if it should be done that way. So I did some research, and sure enough, you really shouldn't do it that way. I guess it makes the sway bar less effective. That kind of defeats the purpose of even using all those pieces anyhow. So I already returned the Cusco sway bar. I just kind of left it in the plastic and like fit it up to see like where the Endlink would line up, and sure enough it didn't, so I put it back in the box and did a return request, which was really no problem. So shout out to Rally Sport Direct. We will come back later and get the proper torque specs. All right guys, now before I mount that sway bar bracket up on this side, I need to install this thing. This goes right here on this little vent hose. This is the filter that I used for the evap delete. I had mentioned in that video where I did the evap delete on this car that I would show you when I pulled this off the wagon to reuse it, what it looked like and where it goes. So I will link to that video if you would like to see what I did in that. That was when I kind of finished the fuel tank. And before I mount up this bracket, I want to get this installed because it'll be way easier to do it now. This is like a little Edelbrock filter, and I can't really remember the size, to be honest with you. So if you're doing this to your own car, I would just measure the diameter of this hose before you go ordering something. This one's nice because the little coupler comes off, and that way I can just sort of squish it in there. And then if you live in an area that has a lot of rain or snow and you drive a lot in that stuff, you may also want to put one of those little like sock filters around it that doesn't allow much water to get through. I've seen people do that. They just kind of zip tie it around that. Just kind of reinstall that clip. I'll probably zip tie that in place a little bit better. Yeah, so there it is. And also this hard line right here, this is just another thing that can just vent to the atmosphere when you do the evap delete. And I like to put a little silicone hose on it. I got this idea from Jesse from the Subi Sanctuary, and he just recommends putting like a silicone hose on this and sort of like wrapping it up and zip tying it up in here just for another little extra peace of mind so that, you know, water can't splash up in there. But yeah, that is the last little piece we needed for this evap delete. In case you're curious, there's your part number for these. That is the right one, that is the left one. There's your bolts, and there's your other piece to the bracket. And last but not least, there's your nut. All right, and now we'll filler it, cover back on. Shit. You ever have those days where you just seriously just drop literally everything you touch? It's been happening to me all day. Driving me crazy. And the next thing I'm gonna do is mount these brake shoes. But I'm gonna save you the pain of watching me do that. And I'm just gonna get that done on my own time. I don't know about you guys, but I absolutely hate doing brake shoes. I just feel like they are a big old pain in the booty. If you guys wanna see me do them, maybe I'll just wait and let me know in the comments if it's something that you would like to know about. There's a lot of videos on YouTube though that show how to do them on these cars. That's how I learned how to do it. So you could just watch those. I could like link to a couple that I think are pretty good. But yeah, brake shoes kind of suck. They're not fun. And usually I sit there and struggle for a good half hour on each side before I can get it all to fit correctly. Before I wrap up this video, I am gonna be listing these for sale. So if anybody wants a set of 24mm white line sway bars with the mounting brackets for the rear, hit me up, let me know. Obviously come with the fresh bushings as well. And I even have the Endlinks laying around here somewhere for the rear, so I can throw those in as well. Or if you just want one of these pieces, let me know. I'm definitely willing to ship them to wherever. I ship parts all the time, so just let me know. Also willing to give a pretty damn good deal on these things. I did not pay for them. They came with this car. When I bought it, they were still in the packaging, so they haven't even been driven on. And I don't mind giving a good deal, but be reasonable, guys. I've had people in the past, when I've done stuff like this on the channel, hit me up and think that I'm just gonna basically give it away. I'm not about to do that. Pretty much everything I buy for this car or for any of the cars I build, I pay for. I don't have any sponsors. I don't have any brand deals with companies. And my wife and I live a very modest lifestyle. I'm just a guy trying to live out his automotive dream in my own shop. So definitely willing to consider any reasonable offers. I'm not gonna be asking full price for these. They've already been mounted up. They are scratched up a little bit just from setting them on the ground and things like that. But yeah, let me know if anyone is interested. Happy to ship them wherever. Otherwise, I will be listing them up on my eBay store. And also guys, today I had a big order from IAG finally arrive, as well as an order from Flatirons Tuning right here, and some smaller pieces from Rally Sport Direct, and then Up here, so I decided to refinish my manifold again. The gold was just bugging me. I kept looking at it, seeing it on the shelf, and I don't know why, just didn't like it. Wanted to go back to a more OEM looking color. That color from Prismatic is called Red Wrinkle 2. It's actually supposed to be a wrinkle color. It didn't really turn out like a wrinkle color, and I think that is my fault. Something in the process I just did not do correctly. It does look really nice. It just kind of has like more of like a satin finish. I do think the color is pretty dang close to the OEM color though. And I think once it's all in here and mounted up, it'll look pretty damn nice. I mean, the finish came out really good. And if you look close, you can see like a slight bit of wrinkle, but yeah, it's not really like the OEM wrinkle. So yeah, that was my bad. I think maybe I just didn't let the part cool after the gas out phase like long enough. And I also used like a chemical stripper on that thing to get the old like gold powder coat off because I did not want to sandblast that piece. I just get worried about like sand getting stuck and embedded in the metal inside the manifold and then getting pushed through the engine later and causing an engine failure. Maybe I'm just like overly paranoid, but it just seems like a part that's probably not smart to be sandblasting. So as far as what's in these boxes that I received, you will have to wait until the next video, and I will be kind of revealing everything that I got from IAG, as well as Flatirons Tuning. And then we will hopefully start diving into either the engine or rebuilding the transmission. And I'm definitely looking forward to rebuilding both the transmission and the engine. It's gonna be a really good time. That's some of the work on these cars that I really love doing and diving into. So I'll be showing you guys a lot of that, as much detail as possible. With that said, that's all I got for this one, guys. Thank you for watching if you've made it this far. If you haven't already, please hit that like button and consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already, especially if you want to see more on this build, because there's lots of cool stuff that we're going to be doing in the near future. So until next time, peace out, everyone.